Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all my annotating system. This video comes to you thanks to Steph over at Coffee Over Apples. I had considered previously making a how I annotate video, but I was kind of like, well, no one's really asked me for this. No one has shown interest, so I'm like, I can just go on with my life. But recently, while I was reading The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers with the Interstellar Book Club, I sent Steph a picture of the annotations in my book. And since she noticed the little sticky flags had different colors, she asked me if they were, a particular system, and I said yes, and she said, oh, then you should totally make a video about it. And I was like, okay, I guess I will. So you can all thank Steph for that. I will of course have her linked down below. Her channel's amazing. I love her content. She's just great. So I'm going to start by explaining the most basic element, which is my little sticky notes, my little flags, the colors that I use, and what each one means. I'm also going to be giving examples of the kinds of things I annotate with each color, because that's kind of something that Steph asked for. She was like, that would make your video a bit different, so I guess I'll try it out. So the first one is pink. Pink is usually the color I use for any moments that are cute, that are sweet, or that are romance related. So it really can vary. I also like to apply it just for cute moments, because sometimes I'm like, not all cute moments are romantic moments, but I feel like all of it is associated with love, so that's kind of why I go with pink. So for my general annotations, the annotations I use for most books, I'm going to be using The Mirror Season as my sample text of what I annotate. So for context, in this book, the two main characters are having kind of like a bonding moment in this interaction, and it's the middle of the night when this is happening, and the protagonist has caught the love interest doing something that she's kind of like, what's happening here? So he starts by saying, it's a long story, and she says, you don't get to use that excuse. I'm in your truck in my nightgown. Yeah, he clears his throat. I noticed. He flushes deeper. This time it's embarrassment. So that's one of the cute moments, because I just like nervous boys, okay? Cute, nervous boys, that's sweet. My next color that I use rather frequently as well is blue, which is the most basic color. Basically, it is just for sad moments. Anything that just makes me sad, melancholy, any of those emotions gets a blue tab. So here's one. I miss loving my body that much. I miss matching my lace-trimmed underwear to my makeup, even though no one would know but me. I miss my cute bras in melon colors. I miss putting on pink and aqua nightgowns that matched my room and clung to my soft body. But missing something doesn't pull it any closer to you. The next color, and you'll see that I'm skipping one, is purple. This one is my most ambiguous color. It's the one that I label quotable, which means that it's either something that I could see like quoted on like a cute tote bag or a wall tapestry, or it's just something that I either very much relate to, find very relatable, either support because I think the message getting across is something very powerful, but it's too long to really be quotable, and that kind of thing. So I think I'll be giving two examples, because in The Mirror Season, the ones I have are a bit more standard, but in The Galaxy and the Ground Within, I have more examples that are kind of like, that's not really quotable in the sense that most people maybe might understand that to mean. Okay, so here's one. Feminismo, my mother says, means both being allowed to open your own door if you like, and knowing you are fantastic enough for a man to open it for you. So that feels a bit more quotable, a bit more, kind of kitschy. I don't know what the word is, but something. But here's an example from The Galaxy and the Ground Within. The beach was lively, but not raucous. Peaceful without being dull. a place where a person had ample space to stretch one's own thoughts while still benefiting from the reassuring company of others at a distance. Which is more like, it's kind of like describing a feeling of place, which is something that sometimes happens, that I just read things that I'm like, I don't know what else to mark this, but I like how it sounds, or I like the thing it's describing, so I have to note it. The last color that I use a lot is orange, which is essentially anything that I consider to be funny. Funny moments, funny dialogue, anything like that, it gets labeled with an orange tab. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones, so okay. Again, this is the protagonist talking with the love interest. "You worked at a liquor store?" I ask. "Yeah," he says, "a drive-through." "Drive-through liquor stores are legal?" He tilts a hand back and forth. "This one was legal-ish?" "Are you legal to work at a liquor store?" "Not even a little bit," he says. "Paid under the table. That was one of the best parts." "Only one of the best parts?" I love it. Iconic, brilliant, beautiful. We love to see it. So there's a very specific reason why I skipped one of the colors, and it's because it's one of my least used colors in most books that I read. And that's because I like to use green for character moments, like character development, characterization. And that to me is not always something that's interesting to me in every book that I read. There are books that I think have stronger character building moments, that they're very unique. Most of the time, if I want to mark it, is because I think it's unique or particular or anything like that. So I don't often use these with just all the books that I annotate. Most of the time I use them with books that I already have read and I like the character work. So when I revisit it, I want to mark it. But most books don't do that for me. So let me give you an example of that. For that, I'm going to be using The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, because I just think the character work here is very, very, very good. And it's also one of my most highly annotated books. Like, y'all see that? Y'all see that it's just so much color. Anyway, okay, I think this one works. And everywhere there were books. Not the tidy stacks of an intellectual attempting to impress, but the slumping piles of a scholar obsessed. Some of the books weren't in English. Some of the books were dictionaries for the languages that some of the other books were in. Some of the books were actually Sports Illustrated swimsuit editions. So this is a description of setting, but which actually tells you a lot about character. So that's why I marked it as one of those characterization tabs. And then with that one, I used to have these sticky notes that had more colors. So for example, there were 2 shades of purple instead of just one. So the lighter shade of purple was those quotable things. So again, it would still be that same thing, but the darker shade of purple would be for foreshadowing, which again is something that you can mostly do better with either series or with like mystery books or whatever, but not all books lend themselves to that. And most of the time I use that color only when I'm extremely familiar with a book series. So like I would have to know the story very, very well so that when I sit down to actually annotate it, I'm paying attention to those moments that I'm like, oh, you're hinting at something here. So let me give one example of that. Obviously, because you might not know this book series yourself, you might not know what it's foreshadowing, but the point is just to give an example. It was a strange old expression, one that Welk hadn't heard since his own days at Aglionby, when he too had been tight as ticks with his roommate, Shurney. If y'all have read the series, y'all know, but if you don't, I'm not about to spoil it. So that's a moment of foreshadowing in the book. So that's essentially everything with the colors themselves and the meanings of the colors. But then what I actually use to mark up quotes varies depending on the book. So sometimes I will use these pens. These are, let me show you the little package. It's Papermate ballpoint InkJoy, and it's 1mm, so they're like the medium point pens is what they call them. It's this. So when I feel like the book kind of matches the colorful aesthetic, I will highlight it with each color matching the little flag. So that's what I'll do. And I also love using these UB markers. They do make it so that it's slower for me to annotate because the ink has to dry quite well for the lines to work out. So I use these. Again, I just match the corresponding colors with the proper annotation colors. And I say the different colors and whatnot because I annotate, you know, using a trusty ruler so that I can mark my quotes properly. And so as you'll see, so hopefully you can see that particular quote. I didn't even pick it on purpose. It's just for example purposes. So I just underline it, you know, using the ruler and the color I want. But for example, this one, since it has a pansexual main character, I use the colors of the pansexual flag to annotate it. I kind of ruined the sequence here and there, but the sentiment was there. So I used pink, yellow, and blue to annotate, as in underline the lines, because I still use my regular color schemes in the tabs. And then yet other times, if the book has a more particular aesthetic, so for example, The Galaxy and the Ground Within with its more purple look as a more central look, then I will pick just one pen color, in this case it being purple, and that would be my color for all my underlining of quotes. For example, here this is underlined in purple, but the annotation color is orange. So that's kind of my process. I feel like I over-explained it, but I don't know. I hope that was helpful to anybody at all, or if you were just curious, then now you kind of know how my brain works when I'm annotating. As a general rule, I tend to not annotate the first time I read a book. I only do that mostly with authors that I'm very familiar with, that I really love their work, and so I just from the get-go start annotating. But I prefer to annotate on rereads because the first time I'm just kind of experiencing the story, and the second time is that I can more comfortably sit with the story in this lens of like, okay, overall, what do I think is cute? What do I think is funny? What do I think builds character? What do I think it might be foreshadowing or something? So that's kind of my general approach. I also sometimes, more rarely, but sometimes I use sticky notes to take notes of either what I'm thinking, or if I just want to have a general summary of the story beat by beat, then I will type it down and then I'll just stick it to the back pages of the book, which usually tend to be empty or like with promotional content, which I don't care. So I'll stick the sticky notes there. I also tend to do this a lot if I'm reading for a book tour, then I will for sure take notes on sticky notes so that I can remember what I was thinking while I was reading. And the color doesn't matter, I just use whichever is available at hand. So yeah, let me just stop rambling because somehow I managed to film a little over 20 minutes of video when I'm just explaining a very simple thing. Because I never know how to shut up. So that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will have the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.